Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for joining the Ad Club's new series, which we're calling At Home With. And today we are at home with Kathy Klingler, who not only not only does she serve on the Ad Club board of directors, but she's also the Chief Consumer Experience and Marketing Officer at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts. So welcome, Kathy. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Kathy.
Yeah, thanks for giving us your time. I know how busy you are.
No, it's great to just have this informal conversation. And I love the ad club and everything that you've done all these years. So anything to support one of my favorite organizations.
Well, thank you. You're very sweet. I was laughing when we were prepping for the call. I said, I want to take a picture of how I had this set up. So one laptop with my script is on my favorite pasta pot, which I have turned upside down, and the laptop sits on top of that. And then my other one is a pile of my favorite books, and that laptop's on that. So what's your at-home situation? What are you doing? Where are you working? And what?
Oh,
Give me a
well,
feel
I'm
with and what
really well. I'm really lucky. As you know, my job prior to this was at Kaplan Higher Education, and that was a job in Florida. And so it was a commuting job back and forth every week. So I took my
right.
husband's, what he thought was going to be his man town, and turned it into, my work town. And so I had this little office on my property that I can just go out and hide, and my dog can't come in and my kids can't come in. And so I'm really lucky.
Yeah, so it's like your own little hideout. That's perfect.
It is.
Very important. So who are you sort of nesting at home with? Who are you
Mm.
quarantining with?
So I have my three children. So my older son, Ben, he came home early from college. He's a freshman. He has
Nice.
it that way. So
Them very much.
yep, yep. And then my daughter Abby, she's a junior, but she's told me as of last week, Mom, I'm now a senior. So she decided to hit me with that one right to the heartstrings. And
Sure.
then my 6-year-old, no, not my 6-year-old, my sixth grader Cole, who
Oh, he'll kill you for saying he's a 6-year-old.
I know, let's not show him this.
That's a mental. That's a
I
mental
want
thing.
him to be my 6-year-old, but he's a sixth grader and he's 12, and that's probably the craziest of everything at home. But it's all the three of us and my husband Brian and our dog Cooper, and we're all here hanging out together.
That's very cool. So working from home. Talk to me a little bit about how you work with your teams, because I think even the best teams, and I think I have one of the best teams on the planet,
Yeah.
every once in a while you can tell when sort of the mood goes down or people are struggling a little bit. Or talk to me about, how do you work with your teams from home? What's the schedule? What's the plan? How do you make
Yeah.
it happen? How do you make it work?
Yeah. I mean, I would say I also feel like I have the best team of anybody. So we'll have to duke it out, Kath, but
We'll do that later. Yeah.
we'll do that later, like face to face over cocktails. But quite honestly, I do have a really great team of people that, I just have a good combination of humanity and just strong work ethic. And so we just stay really connected and probably talk more than ever before as a management team about what's happening in our groups, how are people doing. I will say early on, it happened so suddenly. All of a sudden, it's like you're in your office, and then the next day you don't go back. We always like joke like, do we leave any sandwiches or moldy stuff in the offices? Because you literally just walked out and left everything. I have no clue what I left. And so it happened fast and furious. And then, of course, in our roles, so much trickles down to us with communications and marketing. And so in the beginning, we were just working and working. And then I don't know, maybe it was like week 2, you know, somebody on the team said, I'm really struggling with balancing all this with my little kids and the work and just the constant meetings. And we were all just like taking what we were doing in the work and just bringing it home, but forgetting that we all had lives and children and elderly parents. And so our starting point, honestly, which I think was sort of changed our trajectory, was someone said, like, can we just not book meetings at 1 o'clock? And I said, yeah. I said, I can't promise the entire company of 3,000 people, but I
Yeah.
can promise for myself I won't. And that kind of started it. Like we didn't book any meetings at 1 o'clock, and then we just, I think, just started to become better as a team to just say, just go take time off, or do what you need to do, or let's back each other up. So as a management team, we did that. But then we've done a lot of communicating. Like I always have an all hands meeting with I have about 150 people on my team. And we always do all hand meetings face to face every quarter. And we flipped those to virtual, and we just try and have some fun as well with it, and bring it down a notch. Like we of course talk about the work we're doing and acknowledge the work, but we have a lot of more challenging conversations as well. And then we try and bring some, again, back to this idea of bringing some humanity into it. Like one session we had, everybody sent in their favorite video of what they're doing at home, and everything from just people being funny to just realizing it's crazy for everybody. So it's just a lot of communications. I would say the biggest piece for me is the juggling of being human being, like humanity and business. Like as a leader, how do you effectively juggle that? Because you're trying to get certain things done, but at the same time,
Right.
you got to treat people like human beings and realize that this is an incredibly stressful and anxious filled time, and be really clued into cues of like when people are struggling, and just saying, why don't you just take off Friday, or on me, let's not even talk about it. Just like, anybody like you're taking it,
Yeah.
and
Yes, we've lived, the ad club has lived through that, but we've seen it. And it's really important to just say, okay, take a break.
yeah, take a break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no reason not.
I think these are the most important times for leaders, really, about how you show up, and how, not just in the more, how do the advertising change, or what, like, how do you show up as a person, and how do you really care about the people that are around you, and we're always so busy, and how do you just sort of stop them?
You're in a subject, and this is not, I'm doing this out of order because you're in a subject that I love, which is how do you show up? How do you be a human being? So just before we were supposed to get on this call, you were very emotionally drained because you had just come off a call with a company-wide call, if I understand it right.
Yeah. Our division.
On, yeah, on this whole Black Lives Matter, and um, how do you as a company embrace this, and a healthcare company, which we all know that the people of color struggle on the healthcare side. They tend to be more frontline people. They tend to have less health care. So tell me about the event that you just came off of, and what the.
So I hope I don't I'm getting emotional again just thinking about it. It was a divisional call. It was so last week we had a company-wide panel with our Black associates who led it. Andrew kicked it off, but it was pretty much a panel of our Black associates, and that sort of started the conversation, just to open up, just again to begin to have a conversation, and understand what people are really feeling. And today we piggybacked off that and did it within our division, which is sales, product, the marketing organization, digital experience. That whole organization came together. And again, we had a panel of our Black associates, just talking about this topic. And it was just really eye-opening and emotional, and you like to think of yourself as sort of well-informed and educated, and I'm not when it comes to this topic. And just listening to their really personal, intimate stories, everything from one of the mothers with a 19-year-old son, coming home from Fridays with a wad of money because he was a waiter, and just going into a convenience store to get a soda, and the police, pulling him aside and handcuffing him, and 30 minutes over the car, and he was just a kid coming out of his shift,
with his tips,
right? And just, and just the stories of them as parents, with trying to raise their children, them as, even like professionally, just, you think within the four walls of your company, it's a sort of a safe environment, but they just talked about so many different stories of one woman, this is very, in the bathroom, and they didn't realize she was in there, saying, well, she got that job because she was Black. or someone being inside the elevator in the Prudential and someone running out of the elevator because she was a Black woman and thinking she was in her suit and her, so just really emotional stories. But what was important about it is the dialogue was around, how do we do better as leaders? How do we do better as people? How help us, and because it can't just be this one moment in time in one panel video conversation. It was about, how do you first acknowledge there's an issue, and all of us acknowledging it, then, educating ourselves, like going back and reading history and educating so that you can have the conversation, and then just encouraging us to. I really liked this about just being brave, about talking about it, about, eyes wide open, showing grace, listening, being part of it, and not just letting it, the elephant's in the room, let's address it. And so it was really very emotional. It was really, really impressive, these people coming forward and talking about it and extending the olive branch to all of us to,
Nice.
part
Yeah,
of it.
that's important.
Yeah. And I would say, like, you and I've talked about this before, I just think Blue Cross is special anyway when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And now race is another part of that. And I'll never forget when I joined, we've got thousands of people in our ERGs and all different ERGs. And I've gone to many of their events, and they're like nothing I've ever experienced, like the community of people that come together across the different diverse groups to support each other. So I would say as a company, Andrew has, talks a lot about this journey that we've been on. And I believe, according to him, this predates me. It started more around a race conversation, but it kind of moved to diversity inclusion. And we've done a lot of work on that with just, you look at, 70% women, you look at the number of, ethnicities within our boards, with our leadership. There's a huge focus on the next level down across the organization. And so it's always been a focus of ours. I think that we won the Rose Off one year, but now racism is a piece of that. That's a hard topic, and so we are sort of putting a pledge as a leadership team to take it on.
Right. Well, we have the Rosa Awards that we honored Andrew at, and we're looking at them this year and saying, you can't give awards out for doing the right thing. You can't give awards out anymore for doing what people should.
No, it's true. Yeah,
Like,
right. It's it's not enough to just we just have to, I don't know, really think about how do we get more active and really
right.
I'm proud of what we've done, and I think because of how focused we are as a company, and not just rhetoric, like really focused on it and measure ourselves, and this is probably one of Andrew's, I think it'll be one of his biggest legacies and his biggest, area of focus with his leadership. And no, it's almost not about giving ourselves awards, really.
No, not at all. We're going to change the name even. It's going to become the Rose Up Project, because
I like that.
pretend that this work is finished is absurd.
Yeah, I
So
like
it'll
that a lot.
much more focused on change and scholarships and bringing diverse people into the advertising world. But
Yeah.
I want to keep talking about you.
Let me just answer one last piece. You asked me about social determinants of health, because I think that's there's two sides to us at the Blue Cross. There's the piece I just talked about, and then the other piece is, as a healthcare company, we have a responsibility to address the social determinants of health. I mean, there's huge disparities among our community in terms of their access to health, and even how many, professionals of color exist. I think we were having a conversation about telehealth and how that's exploded from, 150 people a day to 42,000 people a day using those doctor platforms. But just how few, African American doctors there are in there, and how limiting that is. And do communities have access to the technology to even go on these platforms? So it's a topic it's being discussed and continues to be discussed. And you obviously read what I'm reading about COVID and how much more it's impacting our Black community, Latin American communities. And so it's something as well that we are hyper focused on. We always have been through our community work. Huge focus on, this, low to moderate income communities and those most vulnerable. But again, there's so much work to be done.
Yeah, and I told you we had that amazing call with the head of Boston Medical Center, and
Yes.
you want to talk about community involvement, and
Oh,
that's
yeah.
I'm launching that soon, so that was amazing.
Yeah.
So, um, I guess I would say you and I both being in advertising, we walk a fine line because you can come across so slick and so wrong. And so if your messaging isn't even to say authentic, because if you try and fake authentic, that doesn't work either. So
No.
was there any point where when the COVID virus hit, did you have a campaign in play, or were you about to launch a campaign that you said, nah, stop, stop, like put the brakes on?
Yes, I would say if I could do a white paper on all this later, but yeah, I mean, we've been working for a year on a brand repositioning. You know, we have a very strong brand to start with, but the repositioning was more around, where are we going as a company in the future, and just reminding our members what we stand for, and more importantly, tying to sort of those actions, like, what are the products and the services and the experiences, because we just know people are confused and they don't even understand healthcare and how to
Right.
access it. And so, yeah, I mean, it was done. It was going up in North Station. It was,
A
radio
takeover.
was done, North Station was done,
You know
television was
it's done
done,
then.
and COVID hit. And, the last thing people needed to hear was us planting our flag and what we stand for. So it went in the closet. I think it'll still come out because the work is really amazing and really does talk more about the members and a little bit of what we were just talking about. So I do hope it comes back out. But yeah, we had to pivot really quickly. And, my hypothesis, back to the fact that our brand is well known, it would need to be much more about how do we show up for our members and remind them of what is available to them to get through this crisis. So a lot of our focus was around, how are we going to respond? How do we really remove all these crazy barriers that just do exist in this category, so
Right.
that they can get to the care that they need, that we can waive the cost that they need, but yet communicate it a lot and get out there, which is why we've invested money in television and in other mass media channels, because it's hard to reach our members. We don't have all the access information that we'd like with phone numbers and emails, believe it or not, because we sell through employers. So we needed to get out and do that. But at the same time, the We Are Mighty campaign came up out of this desire as a company, pretty early on, to recognize, the community that we live in, and just the incredible work of the front line. Started with the front line, but then it really extended beyond that to just those unsung people that are still cleaning the teas and are delivering all those packages. And
Right.
that feels like forever now, but back then it was like so raw. And honestly, it was in a weekend that we worked with our agency and the concept came up, and within 2 weeks it was done. That was probably the fastest advertising I've ever done, but it
Wow.
was really genuine. And yeah, you're scared. You're really like, what are people going to think of this? And it really wasn't a campaign to sell anything. So it wasn't self-serving to Blue Cross. It really was trying to bring hope into our communities. And so that's why we did it. But yeah, it's a
I
tricky
call them,
time.
I call them the in these uncertain times campaigns.
Yes, that is
And
a
you
great way.
really hard. You
It is.
really
Listen, I'll just tell you
hard.
something that just happened this week on Friday. We just launched some more work that's out there that's more product related about our telehealth, and just because we really want to make sure our members understand what's available to them.
Health's huge right now.
Yeah, and one of them has an actor in it that is a police officer and a local person, and not, and we all kind of got together and said, all right, are we going to do anything? And we weren't. It wasn't, there was nothing around the police force, but we had to go on the social channels and look at what people are saying, and they weren't saying what share our values as a company. So we had to pull it. I was
Uh,
like, oh my God, we just did this one,
wow.
because they were
Wow.
on. saying, and I think, as a company,
Penalties.
yeah, it's sort of it's tricky. It's really tricky. And and I think for me, you do have to kind of come back to the principles of who you are, almost like the personality, the principles of who you are as a company and what you believe. And we have a huge representation of all different types of members. And so it's not jumping into a political conversation. It's not, for us, it's not sharing our opinion versus others. It's, do people represent how we feel as a company? And so that was tricky. And
You could not have picked a more interesting category to be in as a marketer.
I'm telling you, like what's coming next? Honestly, that's how I feel. What's coming next? And
so
that was tricky.
Jump topic a little bit to get to the personal side again. So I think everyone is going through this differently, and I'm not talking about your team. I'm not talking about your company, but people as individuals, and specifically people who are leaders in the community and it never imagined that they'd face this. I mean, you can predict economies, and you can predict, you can predict so many things and see them coming, and as a good leader, you deal with it. This was like the tsunami that just hit the beach. What have you personally, and I'm sure every day you're taking something new out of this. How did this affect you personally? What's your thinking right now? And it can be as simple or as complicated as you want to make it.
Yeah, the one thing I would say was when it hit, I mean, first of all, anyone who knows me knows that I have got a lot of energy, and I'm,
Really?
so I have a lot of energy and a lot of passion for what I do, and I'm a relatively hard worker. And I've always sort of struggled with do you have the right boundaries between work and life, and right? And so when this hit, as I said, you come home and now you're at home, and it's so easy to just sort of, all right, let's just keep going, here in my little home office and never leave, this little office. But I really, I don't know, there was something about all of this that really made me stop and just sort of self-reflect, not just for my team, but for myself, because I think, my team is also looking at me in terms of how I'm reacting. So,
Right. So true.
So one big thing is I think I've done a much better job of putting boundaries around myself, saying no a lot more. I mean, I could be doing lots of different things, and I would love to do all of them. I can remember my mom when I was 12 saying, "You just need to say no to Sarah. You can't do that." I'm like, oh my God, did it really start then?
And you didn't listen to your mother.
I should have listened to my mother.
I know.
And so I'm trying to do what my mother would want. But I'm just trying to have better boundaries. I'm trying to have more balance. I'm trying to, make sure I take care of myself and health. And I've always said that, but maybe a little bit more diligently. The second is I'm just, I'm trying to find a silver lining. I always try and find a silver lining. And I think for me, I've always wanted to spend more time with my children, and just the job itself pulls you away in a lot of different directions. And so I'm taking this moment in time to enjoy being like with my family and with my children and being more present. And, my 6th grader, when he found out that we weren't going back into our offices until September 8th, I can remember he put his arms around me. I was jumping up and down in the kitchen that I was going to be home with him all summer. I'm like, I am working.
That would be the 6-year-old you're referring.
That would be the 6-year-old jumping up and down with me. But there was just so much joy about it. Doesn't matter, even walking in the hallway, those little moments that. So for me, that's the positive side of this, is to don't waste this time and not stop and pause and be present while you're balancing all the insanity that's coming at you in every different direction.
Right. Well, I can't thank you enough for your support of the Ad Club. You have gotten us through a very tough time, just as a leader and serving on the board. And we have the Women's Leadership Forum coming up on July 9th, which It's going to be amazing. I think the
It is.
content is killer, and I think it's going to be a way to unite the community.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Thank you for being part of that.
Thank
And
you.
this has been great, and I appreciate all your time. And I miss our calls in the car. You used to call me on your ride in and your ride home.
I know. That's all that time I was telling you that I get back now. And you know what I've done with it, Kath? I've become a grade school teacher part-time.
I bet.
So I'm like cheering. This is my last week of homeschooling Cole.
Awesome.
And I'm ready for that game show. Are you smarter than a fifth grader? Because I think I could take him on. I think after my Spanish, algebra, geometry, I'm ready. But I thank you for your leadership, Kathy, in the community. This is a hard time for you and the ad club, and you bring so much value to all of us. And of course, we do anything to support the organization. But thank you. You, as always, have risen to the occasion and pivoted like all of us.
Thank you.
And just continue to do great work. So thank you. And thank you for having me here. My house is a
Absolutely.
little very exciting here in my little office. It's nice to just be here and have a morning chat with you.
Anytime. I'm always here.
Thanks, Kath.
Thank you. We'll talk soon. I'll see you at the Women's Leadership event.
All right. See you then. Have a great day.
Bye.